I watched the bathroom light flicker at 4:47 in the morning, knowing I should fix it but couldn't afford the bulb. That's how my life worked back then. I knew how to solve every problem except my own. My name is Marcus Chen, and at 32 years old, I looked like I'd lived 50. The mirror showed me a stranger with dark circles under his eyes and hands covered in calluses from 3 years of fixing other people's broken things. Behind the thin walls of our tiny apartment, I could hear my daughter Emma breathing softly in her sleep. That sound was the only thing that mattered anymore. She was 7 years old, and I'd been raising her alone since before she took her first breath. Her mother left when she found out she was pregnant, just packed a bag and walked out. "I'm not ready for this," she'd said. Those 5 words became the beginning of everything I had to become. I gave up college to raise Emma. Architecture school, my dreams of designing buildings, all of it went into boxes I couldn't afford to store. Every plan I'd made for my future got traded for diapers and doctor visits and keeping one small person alive in a city that didn't care if we drowned. The job at Hartwell Technologies paid just enough to keep us fed. Barely. I started in the basement 3 years ago, fixing pipes and unclogging drains, completely invisible to the people who worked on the upper floors. My phone buzzed at 5:03, and my stomach dropped before I even looked at the screen. Early calls never meant good news. It was Tom Brennan, my supervisor, and he sounded stressed. "Marcus, I need you to handle an emergency. Executive floor. Power outage in the CEO's private suite." My hand tightened around the phone. The executive floor was 28 stories above where I normally worked. A world of marble and expensive art that maintenance workers only entered when absolutely necessary. I'd been up there exactly twice in 3 years, both times fixing urgent problems while the executives were safely away at lunch. "Can't Rodriguez take it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I had to drop Emma at school in 2 hours. Rodriguez called in sick. "Stevens is handling a flood in the parking structure. You're the only one with electrical clearance who's answering their phone." Tom paused. "This came from the top, Marcus." CEO herself requested immediate response. Alexandra Sterling. Even her name carried weight that made my phone feel heavier. Everyone at Hartwell Technologies knew about her. 29 years old and already running a billion-dollar tech empire her father built over 40 years. She'd taken over 2 years ago when her father had a heart attack, and the business world waited for her to fail. Instead, she'd streamlined operations, acquired 4 competitors, and tripled the company's value. The financial press called her a genius. The employees called her the Iron Lady, and not with affection. I'd seen her once, moving through the lobby like she owned gravity itself. She wore a black suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. She hadn't looked left or right, hadn't acknowledged the people who stepped aside to let her pass. Her face was perfectly composed, beautiful in a way that seemed deliberately weaponized. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that missed nothing, black hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She terrified me from 50 feet away. "Fine," I said, defeat settling into my bones. "I'll be there in 40 minutes. 30, Tom corrected. The email said urgent. I ended the call and stood motionless in my bathroom, the dying light still flickering overhead like a warning. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Not with Emma's school fees coming next month. Not with our landlord already calling about last month's late rent payment. I pulled on my work shirt, navy blue with Hartwell Technologies embroidered over the pocket, and grabbed my tool belt from the hook by the door. In Emma's room, I knelt beside her narrow bed and brushed a strand of dark hair from her forehead. She stirred but didn't wake, her small hand curling around the stuffed elephant I'd found at a thrift store for her birthday. "Love you, sweet girl," I whispered. "Mrs. Park will get you to school. I'll pick you up after. I promise." The bus ride to Hartwell Tower took 25 minutes through streets still dark with early dawn shadows. I watched the city wake up through the windows. Delivery trucks unloading, coffee shops flickering to life, other people stumbling toward their own obligations. I wondered how many of them felt like they were drowning too, just trying to keep their heads above water one more day. Hartwell Tower rose 68 stories into the Chicago sky, all steel and glass, looking like it was built to make everyone who entered feel small. I swiped my maintenance badge and took the freight elevator, watching the numbers climb with dread tightening around my chest. Basement levels. Ground floor. The numbers kept rising, carrying me away from everything familiar. The executive floor was silent at 5:38 in the morning. The kind of profound silence that only existed in spaces where powerful people made decisions that changed lives without ever seeing the faces affected. My footsteps echoed on marble floors so polished I could see my reflection. A ghost in work boots carrying a tool bag that seemed suddenly shabby against all that luxury. The work order said CEO's private suite, power outage, all systems unresponsive. I followed the corridor past conference rooms with walls made entirely of glass. Past abstract art that probably cost more than I'd earn in 5 years. Past doorways that led to worlds I'd never be invited to enter. The CEO's suite occupied the corner of the building, separated from the rest of the executive floor by a reception area that looked like something from an architecture magazine. Everything was dark except for the gray wash of dawn creeping through floor-to-ceiling windows. I found the electrical panel behind a door that blended seamlessly into the wall. Someone had labeled it in small letters, "Authorized personnel only." I was authorized technically, though I'd never felt less like I belonged anywhere. The panel revealed the problem immediately. A tripped main circuit, probably from a power surge during the night. Simple fix. 5 minutes of work, maybe less. I reset the circuit and heard the satisfying hum of electricity flowing through the system. Lights flickered on throughout the suite, and I allowed myself a moment of relief. Then I heard it. A voice from somewhere deeper in the office, female and sharp with frustration. Finally. What took so long? My stomach clenched. I'd assumed the floor would be empty this early, that I'd have the place to myself. The realization that Alexandra Sterling was already here, already working while the rest of the city slept, made me want to disappear into the walls. Just needed to reset the main circuit, I called back, keeping my voice professional and distant. Everything should be working now. I'll test the connections to make sure. Do it quickly. I have investors arriving in 90 minutes, and I need to prepare. I moved through the reception area testing systems as I went. Each one responded perfectly, flooding the space with warm light that made the artwork glow and the marble gleam. I was thorough but fast, wanting nothing more than to finish and escape back to the maintenance levels where I belonged. The executive suite had 3 main areas. The reception space, a large conference room, and what had to be Alexandra's private office. 2 of the 3 doors were open. The third, made of frosted glass that turned everything behind it into soft shadows, was closed. I tested the systems outside the conference room, then moved toward the office. There was one more connection panel by the frosted door, a master control that probably operated the office systems. I opened it, verified the circuits, and reached for the door handle without thinking. It was instinct. A maintenance worker's reflex after 3 years of checking, testing, verifying. My hand was on the frosted glass, pushing it open, before my brain registered what I was doing. The door swung inward, and my life split into before and after in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Alexandra Sterling stood in the center of her office, frozen in the act of changing between meetings. She wore a black skirt and a white blouse that was halfway unbuttoned, and her dark eyes went wide with shock that matched the horror flooding through my veins. For one endless second, neither of us moved. My tool bag hit the floor with a crash that shattered the silence. "I'm sorry," I gasped, the words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "I'm so sorry. I was checking the final connections. I didn't know. I didn't mean to." "Get out," she said. Her voice was ice over steel, quiet and absolutely lethal. "I'm sorry," I said again, backing away so fast I nearly tripped over my own feet. My face burned with shame. The door. I thought the room was empty. I was just checking the systems. "I'm so sorry. Turn around." The command stopped me mid-retreat. I spun so fast I felt dizzy, facing the frosted glass and the blurred shapes of the reception area beyond. Behind me, I heard the whisper of fabric, the sharp sound of a zipper. Every muscle in my body was locked rigid, waiting for the explosion, the rage, the inevitable consequences of the worst mistake of my professional life. I'd walked in on Alexandra Sterling half-dressed. The CEO. The woman who could end my career with a single phone call. The woman who held my entire existence in her perfectly manicured hands. "I swear I didn't see anything," I said to the frosted glass, my voice cracking. "I swear I was just doing my job. I didn't know you were in here. Please, I have a daughter. I need this job. Be quiet." My jaw snapped shut. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and panicked, and beneath it, the soft sounds of her finishing dressing. Seconds stretched into eternities. My entire body felt like a live wire, crackling with fear and shame. When she finally spoke again, her voice was controlled but carried something underneath I couldn't identify. "What's your name?" "Marcus Chun. Maintenance staff, electrical clearance." The words came out like a prisoner reciting his crimes. "I've worked here 3 years. I've never had a complaint. I swear this was an accident. I thought the office was empty. I heard you the first time." A pause that felt like judgment being passed. "You can turn around now." I turned slowly, keeping my eyes fixed on the floor. Alexandra stood behind her desk, now fully dressed in the white blouse and black skirt. Her hair was pulled back in the severe style I recognized from that glimpse in the lobby months ago. She looked every inch the CEO again, all traces of vulnerability erased. But her dark eyes studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "Look at me," she said. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Meeting Alexandra Sterling's gaze felt like staring into a searchlight. But I forced myself to do it. She deserved that much at least. An acknowledgement of what I'd done. An acceptance of whatever judgment she was about to deliver. Her face was unreadable, a mask of perfect control. But something flickered in her eyes as she looked at me. Not anger exactly. Something more complicated. "You really didn't know I was here," she said. It wasn't a question. "No, ma'am. I swear. The work order just said power outage." I reset the circuit and I was verifying all the connections. I thought the whole floor was empty this early. My hands were shaking. I clenched them into fists at my sides. "I understand if you need to fire me. I understand I don't have any excuse. I just want you to know it was an accident. I would never." "Stop talking." I stopped. Alexandra walked around her desk with measured steps, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She stopped 3 feet away from me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something subtle and expensive that made the air between us feel charged. "You're terrified," she observed, her voice softer now, almost curious. "Yes, ma'am." "Of me or of losing your job?" "Both." The truth fell out before I could stop it. "Mostly of losing my job. My daughter, she's 7. I'm all she has. I can't." My voice cracked and I forced myself to breathe. "I can't afford to lose this." Alexandra's expression shifted. Something almost like recognition passing across her face. She studied me for another long moment, and I felt like I was being catalogued, assessed, measured against some standard I couldn't begin to understand. "The door was unlocked," she said finally. "I should have secured it. That's on me, not you." I blinked, certain I'd heard wrong. "Ma'am, you were doing your job, verifying the electrical systems. I was careless." She turned away, moving back to her desk with that same controlled grace. "What you saw stays between us. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I would never say anything to anyone. I swear." "Good." She picked up a tablet from her desk, her attention already shifting to whatever waited in her schedule. "Finish your verification and leave. Send your supervisor a report that everything's functioning normally." I stood rooted to the spot, unable to process what was happening. She wasn't firing me. She wasn't even yelling at me. I'd braced for disaster and instead found something I didn't have a name for. "Ma'am." The word came out before I could stop it. "I really am sorry." Alexandra looked up from her tablet, and for just a second her mask slipped. What I saw underneath wasn't anger or ice or any of the things I'd expected. It was exhaustion, the kind of bone-deep weariness that recognized itself in another person. "I know you are." she said quietly. Now go. I grabbed my tool bag and fled, my legs unsteady as I escaped from the office. I completed the final verifications with shaking hands, documented everything on my phone, and made it to the elevator before my knees gave out. I leaned against the cool metal wall, my heart still racing, trying to understand what had just happened. She'd let me go. She'd seen my terror, heard my desperation about Emma, and she'd chosen mercy over the punishment I deserved. Why? The question followed me all the way back to the basement, through the morning's remaining work orders, through the routine of fixing broken things while my mind spun in circles. I picked up Emma from school that afternoon, listened to her excited chatter about the art project she'd made, helped her with homework while heating up pasta for dinner. Normal things, safe things, the rhythm of our life together. But underneath it all, I kept seeing Alexandra's face in that moment when her mask slipped. Kept hearing the quiet acknowledgement in her voice when she'd said, "I know you are." 2 days passed. I reported for my shifts, kept my head down, and tried to convince myself the incident was behind me. The executive floor might as well have been on another planet. I fixed a leaking pipe on the 4th floor, replaced lights in the 2nd floor conference room, unclogged a drain in the cafeteria. Invisible work for invisible people. Then on Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Human Resources. Marcus Chen, please report to Human Resources immediately. 4th floor, Suite 400. My stomach dropped through the floor. This was it. They'd decided to fire me after all. Probably wanted to do it officially, with paperwork and witnesses. I should have known the reprieve was temporary. The HR suite was all neutral colors and uncomfortable furniture designed to make difficult conversations slightly less awful. The receptionist barely looked up when I gave my name, just gestured toward a conference room where a woman in a gray suit waited with a folder. "Mr. Chun, I'm Patricia Huang, HR Director. Please sit down." I sat, my hands gripping my knees. "If this is about Monday morning, I can explain. This isn't disciplinary, Mr. Chun." Patricia opened the folder and slid a document across the table. "This is a position reassignment." The words didn't make sense. I stared at the paper, trying to force my brain to process what I was seeing. "Effective immediately, you're being reassigned from general maintenance to senior facilities specialist for executive operations. It's a permanent position with a significant salary increase and comprehensive benefits package." My vision blurred. The numbers on the page swam in front of my eyes. "I don't understand." The position was created specifically based on a recommendation from Ms. Sterling herself. She indicated that the executive floor requires dedicated technical support with electrical expertise and Patricia consulted her notes, demonstrated exceptional discretion and composure under pressure. "Ms. Sterling recommended me." The words came out strangled. "That's correct. The salary is detailed on page 2. You'll also receive health insurance that covers dependents, which I understand is relevant given your daughter." Patricia's professional demeanor softened slightly. "This is a good opportunity, Mr. Chun. The executive operations position comes with better hours, better benefits, and direct exposure to company leadership." I looked down at the numbers again. The salary was almost double what I currently made. The health insurance would cover Emma's dental work she desperately needed. The hours meant I could drop her off at school every morning and pick her up every afternoon. It was everything I needed, everything I'd been drowning for lack of, and it came from Alexandra Sterling. "I don't understand why," I said quietly. "After what happened?" "Ms. Sterling's recommendations don't require explanation," Patricia interrupted smoothly. "Do you accept the position or not? What choice did I have? What choice had I ever had?" "Yes," I said. "I accept." The paperwork took 40 minutes, and by the time I left Human Resources, my hands were numb from gripping the folder. I started Monday morning, reporting directly to the 28th floor where Alexandra worked. Amanda Liu, her chief of staff, would brief me on protocols and expectations. I went home that night and sat at our tiny kitchen table after Emma fell asleep, staring at the numbers that would transform our lives. I could pay rent on time, could fix the leaking faucet in our bathroom, Could buy Emma new shoes instead of praying the old ones lasted another month. But the question wouldn't leave me alone. Why had Alexandra done this? Monday arrived like stepping into a different universe. The executive floor at 7 o'clock in the morning hummed with controlled energy. Assistants arranging schedules, junior executives clutching coffee like lifelines. The soft ping of elevator arrivals delivering the day's first wave of ambition. I felt immediately out of place. A maintenance worker in navy blue surrounded by tailored suits and clicking heels. Amanda Liu met me at reception. She was in her mid-40s, impeccably dressed in charcoal gray, with sharp eyes that assessed me in a single glance. "Mr. Chun, follow me." She moved like someone who'd learned to navigate these hallways in her sleep. She led me to a small office I hadn't noticed during my emergency call, tucked discreetly near the electrical systems. It had a desk, comfortable chair, built-in cabinets for equipment, and a window showing the city below. "This is your workspace," Amanda said briskly. "You'll maintain all systems on this floor with priority given to Ms. Sterling's immediate area. Response time for her requests is 10 minutes maximum. All other issues should be resolved within the hour, unless they require parts or outside contractors." She handed me a tablet. "This links to the building management system. You'll receive all work orders here along with Ms. Sterling's schedule, so you can plan maintenance around her meetings. That schedule is confidential. You don't discuss it with anyone. Understood?" "Understood," I said, taking the tablet carefully. "Ms. Sterling values 3 things above all else," Amanda continued, her voice matter-of-fact. "Discretion, efficiency, and seamlessness. Your work should be invisible. She shouldn't have to think about whether the systems work or the temperature is comfortable. If she notices you at all, it should be because you've solved a problem before it became her problem." The first week passed in a blur of learning protocols and staying out of sight. I memorized the building management system, familiarized myself with every circuit and climate control, discovered that the executive floor had more technology packed into one level than the rest of the building combined. I attended morning briefings and learned to decode Amanda's careful language. "Ms. Sterling requires uninterrupted focus time," meant keep the entire wing silent. Board members visiting from New York meant everything needed to be perfect to the point of obsession. Through it all, I caught only glimpses of Alexandra. A flash of black hair as she strode past, her voice carrying through a conference room door, crisp with authority. Once I was replacing a fixture in the hallway when she emerged from a meeting, and our eyes met for half a second before she looked away and continued walking. She gave no sign of recognition, no acknowledgement that I existed beyond my function as the person who kept her world running smoothly. Then on my 8th day, late afternoon around 6 o'clock, I was in the main conference room testing a video system that had glitched during a presentation. I was on my back under the table rewiring connections when I heard voices approaching. "I don't care what the legal team says." Alexandra's voice cut through the air like a blade. "We're not settling." Thomas knew exactly what he was doing when he violated that non-compete. "Alexandra, the optics alone." A male voice older, trying for reason. "The optics of backing down are worse. We set a precedent here." Heels clicked closer as they entered the conference room. I froze under the table. I could see expensive shoes. Alexandra's black heels, a man's polished dress shoes. The door closed with a soft click. "You're being unreasonably aggressive about this," the man said. I recognized the voice now. Richard Morrison, one of the senior board members. "Thomas was your father's hire. Going after him publicly damages Harrison's legacy." "My father's legacy is secured by the company's success, not by protecting executives who betray us." Alexandra's voice was ice cold. "Is someone in here?" My heart stopped. I'd been so still, barely breathing, but somehow she'd sensed me. "The maintenance technician, I believe," Richard said, and I could hear the disdain in his voice. "Perhaps we should have him escorted out before continuing confidential matters." Silence stretched for 3 beats of my racing heart. "Chun," Alexandra said. Not a question. A statement. I slid out from under the table, tool bag in hand, my face burning.
"I'm sorry."
I was fixing the video system. I didn't mean to. Did you hear our conversation? Richard demanded. I heard voices, I said carefully, meeting Alexandra's eyes despite every instinct screaming at me to look away. I didn't listen. It was a distinction without a difference, and we all knew it. Richard's expression said he expected immediate dismissal. But Alexandra just studied me with that same unreadable intensity. Finish your work, she said quietly. Then leave. I turned back to the video system with shaking hands, hyper-aware of the conversation continuing in low tones behind me. Every second felt like an eternity. When I finally packed up and headed for the door, Richard was mid-sentence about shareholder concerns. Neither acknowledged my departure. That night, around 8 o'clock, when the executive floor was dark except for emergency lighting, my tablet pinged with a message. It was from Alexandra's private email, sent directly to my work account. Your discretion is noted and appreciated. As 7 words. No explanation. But I stared at them until my eyes blurred, trying to decode the meaning underneath. The following week, Alexandra requested me by name for the first time. Temperature control malfunction in her office. I made it there in under 8 minutes. The room was stifling, at least 78 degrees and climbing. Alexandra sat behind her desk, facing screens showing video conference participants. She didn't acknowledge my presence, but I saw her shoulders relax fractionally when I entered. I worked in absolute silence, replacing a failed sensor, recalibrating the system. Cool air began flowing within minutes. Much better, she said into the conference call. Now that we can think clearly, let's discuss realistic deliverables. She wasn't talking to them. She was talking to me, acknowledging the fix without breaking focus on her meeting. 3 days later, she asked for me again. A malfunctioning outlet discovered 15 minutes before a meeting with potential investors. I replaced it in under 10 minutes while she reviewed presentation materials. Then again, a flickering light above her desk, a coffee maker that refused to function, a loose door handle. Small things easily fixed, but each request came directly from her, bypassing the normal system. I began anticipating issues, noticed when temperature fluctuated and adjusted it before she felt the change. Identified a pattern in the lighting that caused a brief flicker every 3rd day and replaced the timer. Kept spare parts for every system she used regularly. And slowly, incrementally, the Iron Lady began to thaw in my presence. You're here early, she said one morning when I arrived to replace a detector before she got in. Wanted to finish before your first meeting, I replied. Amanda mentioned you have investors at 8:30. You read the briefings. Approval underneath her words. Helps me plan my work around your schedule. She'd been reviewing something on her tablet, but she looked up. Most people on my staff do the minimum required. Why don't you? The question caught me off guard. I secured the detector before answering. I have a daughter. She deserves better than minimum effort. This job, what you did for me, giving me this position, it transformed our lives. Seemed like the least I could do was earn it. Something flickered across her face, too quick to identify. Your daughter. She's 7. Yes, ma'am. Emma. The name felt intimate somehow, personal in a way that made me hesitate. She's in 2nd grade. Loves art and hates math homework. Wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. Just the 2 of you? Just us, I confirmed. Her mother left before she was born. It's been me and Emma since the beginning. Alexandra was quiet for a moment. That must be difficult. It's everything, I said simply. Then, because she'd opened the door, what about you? Is there? I stopped, realizing too late I was crossing a line. But Alexandra smiled. A small, sad curve of her lips that transformed her face for just a second. No one, she said. Building an empire doesn't leave much time for personal connections. And most people want something from me. Power, access, proximity to success. It becomes difficult to know what's real. The honesty in her voice startled me. I can't imagine what that's like. Not trusting people's intentions. Can't you? Alexandra's eyes held mine. You trusted your daughter's mother. She left. Now you raise Emma alone, working yourself to exhaustion to provide for her. I'd imagine trust is complicated for you too. She was right. The recognition settled between us, an understanding that neither of us had expected to find here. Then came the day that redefined everything. It started ordinarily enough. Morning briefing at 6:30. Amanda ran through the schedule with precision. Video conferences, department reviews, and a major presentation at 4 o'clock in the main conference hall. The presentation is particularly important, Amanda emphasized. Ms. Sterling will announce the new product line. Press, investors, all senior staff. Everything needs to be perfect. Around 2 o'clock, I decided to check the conference hall personally. The facilities team had done good work. Everything looked pristine. But something made me look up at the lighting. Years of maintenance work had trained my eyes to spot things that weren't quite right. One of the stage lights looked off-center, its mounting bracket slightly twisted. I found a ladder and climbed up. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The safety cable that prevented lights from falling if the main mount failed was frayed nearly through. Not from age, but from what looked like deliberate cutting. Someone had sawed through most of the cable, leaving just enough intact that it wouldn't be immediately obvious. And the main mounting bolt was loose, turned back several threads. This wasn't neglect. This was sabotage. The light weighed at least 45 pounds. If it fell during the presentation, directly onto the stage where Alexandra would be standing. I didn't let myself finish the thought. I secured everything properly, replaced the safety cable, checked every other light in the system, found 2 more with loosened bolts and secured them all. The question burning in my mind was whether to report this. But I had no proof beyond professional judgment. The frayed cable could theoretically be wear. The loose bolts might be poor maintenance. And if I was wrong, I'd look paranoid. Worse, I'd put myself in Alexandra's line of sight in a way that violated everything she valued about me. I documented everything with photos, secured the systems, and decided to monitor them closely. At 3:55, Alexandra arrived, flanked by Amanda and 2 senior executives. She wore a deep blue suit that commanded attention. Our eyes met across the distance. Something passed between us that might have been acknowledgement. Then she turned to her notes, and I forced myself to breathe. The presentation began. Alexandra spoke with authority that made people lean forward. I stood near the controls, watching not the presentation but the equipment. The lights held steady. Everything worked perfectly. I started to relax. Then the light directly above center stage shifted. Subtle. A slight rotation. But I saw it immediately. Someone was in the overhead rigging. A figure adjusting something in the shadows. Caleb moved before thinking, racing toward the stage access. But the stairs were on the opposite side, and Alexandra was directly under that light, still speaking, unaware. The light shifted again. Someone was actively working to override my repairs. I abandoned stealth and ran, my boots pounding, drawing attention. Security guards started moving, confused. Amanda's startled face. Alexandra paused mid-sentence, her eyes finding me. "Get away from center stage," I shouted. "Now!" Alexandra froze. Years of control kept her rooted. The light above her groaned, metal straining. I didn't have time to explain. I launched myself onto the stage, grabbed her around the waist, and threw us both sideways with every ounce of strength. We hit the floor hard. Half a second later, 45 pounds of metal and glass crashed exactly where she'd been standing. Glass exploded across the stage like deadly rain. Sparks flew from severed connections. The crowd erupted in chaos, screaming, people running, security converging. But I only registered Alexandra in my arms, her body pressed against mine, her heart hammering so hard I could feel it through our clothes. Her dark eyes were wide with shock, her perfect composure shattered. "Are you hurt?" I demanded, my hands moving over her shoulders, checking for injuries. "Did the glass hit you?" "I'm fine," she breathed, but her voice trembled. How did you know?" "I'll explain later. Right now we need to." Security surrounded us, pulling us apart, voices shouting questions. I caught a glimpse of figures fleeing from the rigging access, guards racing after them. Amanda was there suddenly, her professional mask cracked with genuine terror, helping Alexandra to her feet. "I'm fine," Alexandra said again, louder now, authority returning even as her hands shook. "Everyone calm down. Clear the hall in an orderly fashion." Her eyes found me again. I was still on the floor, glass scattered around me like diamonds. Blood ran from a cut on my arm where a shard had caught me. "You're bleeding," she said. "It's nothing. It's not nothing." She moved toward me, but Amanda intercepted her gently. "We need to get you to a secure location until security sweeps the building." For a moment I thought Alexandra would refuse, but she let Amanda guide her toward the exit, looking back at me one last time with an expression I couldn't read. Then she was gone, and I was surrounded by security asking questions I barely heard. The security office became command central within minutes. I sat in a hard plastic chair while a paramedic cleaned the gash on my forearm. Around me, guards spoke in clipped tones, coordinating a building-wide lockdown while reviewing footage on monitors. Marcus Webb, head of security and a former detective, pulled up a chair. "Walk me through what happened. Start with why you were checking the hall in the first place." I explained about the morning briefing, my decision to personally verify systems, finding the frayed cable and loose bolts. I showed him the photos on my tablet, time-stamped from hours before. "You fixed it," Webb said, studying the images. "Secured everything properly. So how did the light still fall?" "Someone was up in the rigging during the presentation. I saw movement, saw them working on something. They must have loosened it again." Webb's jaw tightened. "Did you see a face?" "No, just a silhouette. Dark clothes moving fast." "And you didn't report the initial sabotage?" The question carried weight. I met his eyes steadily. "I considered it, but I had no proof it was deliberate. Could have been negligence. I documented everything, fixed the immediate danger, planned to monitor it. I didn't expect someone to actively interfere during the event itself." Webb studied me. "Your quick thinking saved Ms. Sterling's life. But this is now a criminal investigation. Attempted murder, possibly corporate espionage. You'll need to make a formal statement." "Whatever you need," I said. The door opened and Amanda appeared. "Mr. Chun, Ms. Sterling wants to see you now." Webb nodded. "We'll continue shortly. Don't leave the building." Amanda led me through corridors now patrolled by additional security, past employees in worried clusters to a smaller conference room I'd never entered. Alexandra stood at the window, her back to the door, still in the blue suit but with her hair down now. She didn't turn when we entered. "Leave us," she said quietly. Amanda hesitated. "Alexandra, security protocols suggest I'm safe with Marcus." Her voice was soft but absolute. The door closed with a click that seemed too loud. "You tackled me," Alexandra said finally, still facing the window. "In front of 300 people. You grabbed me and threw us both to the ground." "I'm sorry," I said automatically. "I didn't have time to." "Don't apologize." She turned, and the expression on her face stopped my words. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her mask completely gone. "You saved my life. Do you understand that? If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't seen that light shifting, I would be dead right now." The rawness in her voice hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't the CEO who commanded boardrooms. This was a woman confronting her own mortality, stripped of every defense. "I saw the sabotage this afternoon," I said. "The frayed cable, the loose bolts. I fixed it, but I should have reported it immediately." "You did exactly what you should have done." Alexandra crossed the room, stopping 3 feet from me. "You identified a threat, neutralized it, and stayed vigilant. When the danger evolved, you acted without hesitation." "I'm just a maintenance tech. I fix broken things." "I'm not. You're the man who saved my life." Alexandra's eyes held mine with intensity that made breathing difficult. "So don't tell me what you are or aren't, Marcus Chin. I know exactly what you are." The way she said my name rewired something in my chest. I found myself taking a step closer. What happened up there on that stage wasn't about maintaining your image or protecting the company. That was about you. Just you. And I would do it again without thinking twice. Her breath caught. For a moment, I thought she might say something that would reshape everything between us. But then her phone buzzed, and she looked away. Security found evidence in the rigging, she said, her voice steadier now. Tools cut cables. They're reviewing all footage. Whoever did this will be caught. Do you know why someone would target you like this? A bitter smile crossed her face. I'm a young woman running a billion-dollar company in an industry dominated by men who think they deserve what I have. I've made enemies. The list of people who'd benefit from my death is longer than I'd like to admit. The casual way she said it made my hands curl into fists. That's not normal. That's not acceptable. It's reality, Alexandra said. And now I have to decide how to handle it. You show strength by staying alive, I said. Everything else is secondary. She looked at me with something that might have been wonder. You really believe that? I know what it's like to have someone depending on you. To know that your choices, your survival, determines their entire world. I thought of Emma, probably finishing homework right now, unaware of how close she'd come to losing me today. You have thousands of employees whose livelihoods depend on this company. You owe it to them to protect yourself. Is that the only reason? Alexandra asked softly. The question hung between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to examine. Before I could answer, Webb appeared with 2 other security personnel. Ms. Sterling, we've identified the individual in the rigging. Webb's expression was grim. Show me. They moved to a larger conference room where security had set up command. On the main screen, frozen footage showed a man in dark coveralls accessing the rigging 20 minutes before the presentation. The image quality was good enough to see his face clearly. His name is David Martinez, Webb said. He's been with building maintenance for 7 months. Background check was clean, but we just discovered his employment application used a false identity. Someone planted him. Someone planted him, Alexandra said, her voice tight. That's our assessment. But there's more. Webb pulled up another image. A screenshot of an email from an anonymous account. This was sent to 3 business journalists 40 minutes ago, before the incident. It claims you've been inflating revenue numbers. The timing suggests whoever sent it expected you to be in no position to defend yourself. I felt sick. This wasn't just assassination. It was coordinated destruction. Kill Alexandra, release damaging accusations, destroy the company's value all at once. The allegations are false, Alexandra said flatly. But proving that will take time, and the accusation alone will damage investor confidence. Not if you're standing in front of cameras tomorrow very much alive, with security footage showing attempted murder, Webb said. We need to find Martinez before he disappears, Alexandra said. And I want to know who hired him. Over the next 3 hours, the investigation expanded. Law enforcement arrived. Statements were taken. And then the breakthrough came. Webb called us back to the command center, his expression grave. We traced Martinez's communications. The person who hired him, he paused, is Thomas Park, your chief innovation officer. The name hit like a physical blow. Thomas Park had worked with Alexandra for 3 years, had collaborated on countless projects, had sat in strategy sessions planning the company's future. That's not possible, Alexandra said slowly. Thomas has been loyal since before I took over. Why would he? We believe he's working with outside interests, Webb interrupted. Former executives from Technova Industries, the competitor you acquired 2 years ago. They recruited him, funded the operation. The plan was to eliminate you, install their own leadership, and Thomas would maintain his position while feeding information to competitors. Alexandra sat down slowly, her face pale. Thomas came to my father's funeral, told me he believed in my vision, has sat in meetings with me almost daily for 3 years. Her voice broke slightly. And all that time he was planning to kill me. We've been watching him since we identified the connection, Webb said. He's in his office right now, acting like everything is normal. We need your authorization to arrest him. Not yet, Alexandra said sharply. Webb frowned. Ms. Sterling, he's a flight risk. If he suspected, he'd already be gone, Alexandra interrupted. Thomas is smart, careful. Which means there's more. We don't know everyone involved, all the evidence to gather. If we arrest him now, we lose the chance to see the full picture. That's dangerous, Webb said carefully. Every day he walks free is another day he could try something else. Not if he thinks he's still hidden, Alexandra said. Not if we feed him information that makes him believe his plan is still viable. They debated for another hour. Finally, Webb agreed to 48 hours of surveillance before moving to arrest. Alexandra would act normally, Thomas would be watched constantly, and they'd track every communication, every movement. When the meeting finally ended, Alexandra remained seated, staring at her clasped hands. You don't have to do this, I said quietly after everyone left. You don't have to put yourself at risk to catch everyone involved. The police will arrest Thomas and close the case, she said without looking up. But the people who funded this will disappear. Find someone else to target me with. I'll spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Better than being dead. Is it? She finally looked at me. I've built my entire existence around control, Marcus. Around knowing the variables, staying ahead of everyone trying to take what I've built. If I let fear dictate my choices now, I lose the only thing that's kept me standing. I moved closer, pulling out the chair beside her. You're allowed to be afraid. You're allowed to choose safety. It's not just about catching them. Her voice cracked. Maybe I'm tired of surviving alone. Maybe that's why I'm asking you to stay close. Because for the first time in longer than I can remember, I don't want to face this by myself. The confession settled between us, vulnerable and raw. I reached out slowly and covered her hand with mine. Her skin was cold, trembling slightly. You're not alone, I said. Not in this. Not anymore. She turned her hand over, threading her fingers through mine, and we sat there holding on to each other. The next 48 hours were brutal. I stayed within 10 feet of Alexandra at all times. Thomas appeared at meetings looking concerned, asking how she was handling the stress. I watched him perform empathy while knowing he'd tried to kill her. On the second night, around 11 o'clock, I was doing a final security check when my earpiece crackled. We've got movement, Webb's voice said urgently. Thomas just entered the building. He's heading for the executive floor. My heart rate spiked. Where's Ms. Sterling? Still in her office. Get to her now. I ran, boots pounding against marble. Behind me, elevator doors opened. Footsteps echoed. I burst into Alexandra's wing to find her at her desk, completely unaware. We need to go, I said urgently. Now. Thomas, in the building, coming up. The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the floor. Stay behind me, I whispered, pulling Alexandra away from the desk. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. Alexandra. Thomas's voice called from the darkness, friendly and calm. Are you still here? The power went out. I came to make sure you were okay. I'm fine, Thomas, she called back, her voice steady. Just finishing some work. Actually, you're not fine. Thomas appeared in the doorway, backlit by emergency lights. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could see the gun in his hand. I made sure of that. Had months to prepare, to understand every system. You made it easy, really trusting me with so much access. Thomas, what are you doing? What I should have done 2 years ago, he said, stepping into the office. You were never supposed to run this company, Alexandra. So stubborn, so convinced you could prove everyone wrong. And you did, which made everything more complicated. Who approached you? Alexandra asked, and I heard the calculation in her voice. Keep him talking. People who understand that innovation shouldn't be controlled by legacy. Thomas moved closer, and I shifted to maintain position between them. They offered me a real future. All I had to do was remove the obstacle. You mean kill me? The stage light was supposed to be clean, Thomas said. Tragic accident. But you had to have him. The gun gestured toward me. Plain maintenance hero. So now we do this the hard way. Security is already coming, I said. You won't make it out. I don't need to make it out, Thomas said. I just need her dead. The gun rose, pointing at Alexandra, and I saw his finger tighten. I lunged sideways, slamming into Thomas, driving us both into the wall. The gun discharged, deafeningly loud. The bullet passed so close to my head the air pressure made my ear ring. We crashed into furniture, struggling in darkness. Thomas was stronger than he looked, desperate enough to fight with everything. Run! I shouted at Alexandra, but she didn't run. I heard the crash of something heavy, her desk lamp connecting with Thomas's skull. He staggered, his grip loosening, and I wrenched the gun away. Then light flooded the office and security swarmed in, pulling Thomas away, forcing him to the ground. I gasped for air, my throat raw. Strong hands helped me sit up, and suddenly Alexandra was there, kneeling beside me, her hands framing my face. Marcus, she said, her voice breaking. Can you hear me? Are you hurt? I tried to speak, coughed instead. I'm okay. Are you? Did he? I'm fine. You kept yourself between us. Her thumb brushed my cheek. You threw yourself at a gun. You could have died. Couldn't let him hurt you, I said simply. Around us, security was reading Thomas his rights. Detective Morrison appeared, taking in the scene. We got it all on audio. His confession, everything. That plus attempted murder will put him away for life. Good, Alexandra said. But her attention never left me. Get him out of here. Get all of them out. They went, though Webb looked reluctant. Then the door closed, and we were alone, both breathing hard. You saved my life, Alexandra said quietly. Again. That's becoming a habit. Don't. Her hands were still on my face. Don't make light of this. You could have died, Marcus. But I didn't. We didn't. We're both still here. Because of you. The words came out fierce. Because you keep choosing to stand between me and people trying to destroy me. And I don't know what to do with that. I see you too, she whispered. And I don't know when it happened, but somewhere between you walking in on me and you tackling a man with a gun, I stopped being able to imagine facing any of this without you. My breath caught. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not now, not ever, if you'll let me stay. I don't deserve you. That's not your choice to make. I'm already here. Already yours. If you want me. Then Alexandra leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce, and I kissed her back with everything I had. When we finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine. This is complicated, she whispered. I know. People will talk. Everyone will have opinions. I know that too, and I'm still not going anywhere. She pulled back to look at me. You really mean that? Every word. You and me. We make a pretty good team. She laughed, the sound watery but genuine, and kissed me again. For 3 weeks after, Alexandra managed the crisis publicly while I recovered at home with Emma. We maintained distance except for late-night messages. Brief check-ins. Then Alexandra sent Emma a first edition book with a note asking me to be patient. Hostile board members resigned. The rescheduled presentation went perfectly. Afterward, she called me to her office and admitted she'd spent 3 weeks trying to convince herself our connection was just gratitude, but failed. She confessed she struggled being authentic, still learning to trust, terrified that wanting me might invite destruction. But she was ready to try. I told her I wanted quiet dinners, eventual introduction to Emma, to discover what made her genuinely laugh. Choosing her deliberately, not because she was the CEO, but because she was Alexandra. We kissed, both crying and laughing, committing to navigate this together. 3 months later, I watched Alexandra help Emma with a school project in her apartment. My daughter had embraced her patience and genuine interest. Later, on the balcony overlooking Chicago, Alexandra admitted she never believed she could have both career and relationship, but I'd shown her she could with the right partner. We exchanged "I love you" for the first time under the stars. Our story wasn't fantasy. It was real. The facilities technician and the Iron Lady who discovered that genuine strength isn't solitary endurance, but courage to allow the right people to stand beside you and build something meaningful together beyond professional success.